But I haven't figured out how to show my
I'll
like
pause the
this
recording.
screen.
I'll do the time. You got this, man. You got this. Go for it.
Hello and good morning. My name is Brian Nick, and I'll be presenting you the problem of urban flooding and how we can find a solution for it. But first, just how impactful is flooding? Uh, as you can see here, flooding affects many across the entire globe. The impact of flooding is clearly widespread, revealing where flooding is significant. But this map only demonstrates where flooding has an impact. These pictures provide perspective of how destructive flooding can be. On the left, you can see Prague before the 2002 flood. Prague is a beautiful city and is the largest city in Czech Republic. And on the right is a picture of Prague after the flood. This just represents how destructive flooding can be. We've seen how impactful flooding can be across the globe, but how does flooding affect us locally here in the US? This picture provides a general understanding of the flood risk in the US. With this, we know where in the US flooding has an impact, but just how destructive can flooding in the US be? I'm sure we're all familiar with the recent incident of Hurricane Harvey, a destructive Category 4 hurricane that hit Houston, Texas in 2017. This disaster costed $125 billion in damage and was responsible for 103 deaths. These numbers reveal just how destructive flooding can be in an urbanized area like Houston. So why do urban areas get hit harder by flooding compared to non-urban areas? Well, let me give you a visual demonstration. Here I have two tubs. One is empty and one has some dirt. I will then put the same amount of water into each tub. This is about half a cup of water. Notice how there's not much running water in this tub, but the water is very runny in this tub. This tub represents a non-urban area, and this tub represents an urban area. You see how this can be a problem for urban areas. So the question arises, how can we prevent urban flooding? What can we as a people do to prevent urban flooding? Well, first, we must define prevention. Prevention of flooding refers to these concepts: mitigation, adaptation, and preparedness. Mitigation focuses on reducing the chances of flood event itself. This means taking the root of the cause of flooding and removing it from there. Adaptation focuses on reducing the vulnerability to flood events. This means making change to further protect ourselves from the actual destruction of flooding. Preparedness focuses on how we respond and react to flood event. This means making the aftermath of flooding as minimal as possible through a correct response. Normalizing anti-flooding procedures would greatly help to prevent urban flooding. Examples of anti-flooding procedures include rainwater harvesting, use of structure designed to combat flooding, and having an evacuation plan. Rainwater harvesting is exactly what it sounds like. You simply collect rainwater. It is a form of mitigation as it takes one of the causes of flooding and reduces it. The main objective of rainwater harvesting is to reduce the amount of water running across impermeable surfaces. A study at Penn State tested the effectiveness of rainwater harvesting. The results indicated that the method could decrease stormwater quantity peak runoff by 52.7% and total volume runoff by 46.1%. This means less chance for flooding, less water pollution, and more water conservation. The results also indicated that Penn State could save between $10 million to $30 million over the next 30 years by investing in rainwater harvesting. To sum it up, rainwater harvesting keeps water off the roads and inside personal water storages. Here's a picture of a very simple rainwater collector. This is actually a picture of my rainwater collector in my backyard. The gutter on the roof simply collects rainwater and then transports it to a nearby storage. This cheap, standard water collector does its fair job in managing stormwater while also collecting water for irrigation purposes. Now, the next procedure is implementing anti-flooding procedures. Specifically for housing, this is a form of adaptation as a process of making change to protect ourselves from flooding. The main objective of anti-flood structures is to reduce the damage done to housing from floods. Taking personal measures to self-protect is a great step to take in minimizing the destruction of flooding, as it means less reliance on the government, because the government cannot immediately help every citizen. The decision to independently protect your own household is also economically reasonable, especially in areas prone to flooding. The 2006 flood in the Elbe catchment, which is in Germany, costed around $100 million. Proper housing to combat flooding would have saved millions of dollars. This is an example of an anti-flooding home that is most common in areas with high flood risk. The whole house is designed to combat strong flooding. This type of method to protect against flooding is much less extreme. This type of structure is most effective in areas with mild flooding. Our third and last anti-flood procedure consists of having an evacuation plan. This is a form of preparedness, as it establishes a sense of order to help citizens respond to emergencies as correctly as possible. The main objective of an evacuation plan is to make clear to citizens how they should respond to a flood event. It is nearly impossible to reduce the chances of flooding to zero, so knowing how to respond to such an emergency is important. When undergoing a disaster, it is easy for citizens to panic and make the situation even more problematic. Following an evacuation plan will ultimately reduce the panic and minimize the struggles a flood event may cause. Here on the left is what an emergency plan may look like. It is simply a set of guidelines for citizens to follow in an orderly fashion that will help smooth out response to a flood. On the right is what an evacuation plan with routes and exits may look like in its simplest form. I actually just went to MS Paint and drew an ideal exit route in the situation in the picture. A river is on the left, so you want to go away from that, preferably to higher ground. In conclusion, the answer to the problem of urban flooding is the implementation of anti-flooding procedures. Citizens becoming accustomed to these procedures will effectively prevent flooding as much as possible, especially those who live in urban areas of which risk of flooding is high. To some, normalizing these anti-flooding procedures will reduce the chances of flooding, the damage caused by flooding, and the panic caused by flooding. Thank you, and that'll be all from me.
Way to go, man. Great job. I'm going to stop the recording. So I'm recording and hope it is your show. Okay. So whenever you're ready on your first word, I'll begin recording.
All right.
Take a deep breath. You got this. You're going to do great.
Okay. Hello and good morning. My name is Hope Mercier, and I'm going to be speaking to you about how urbanization has caused an increase in flooding and what we can do to solve this issue. Research has shown us that each year, 36 million trees are cut down in urban areas and are instead replaced with 167,000 acres of impermeable materials such as asphalt and concrete in just the United States alone. You may be thinking to yourself, what does this have to do with flooding? Well, it turns out it has everything to do with it. The roots of trees create small passages in soil called macropores that makes it more absorbent by 153% compared to soil without plants, and therefore is better equipped to fight against flooding. The trees also prevent sediment runoff and cause any water that lands on their leaves to evaporate quickly. To further confirm this theory, a study was done by Global Change Biology, and it was discovered that when there is a decrease of trees in a natural forest area of 10%, there's a 4 to 8% increase in total flood duration. A great example of how urbanization has made floods cause more damage is the floods in Taiwan. There's often an onslaught of storms and typhoons in the summer and autumn of Taiwan. As the years go on, they continue to cause more and more damage. And according to a study done in 2006, rapid urbanization without proper land uses management is the cause of why they continue to worsen. This same reason was also what scientists believe caused Hurricane Harvey in Houston, Texas to be so violent. It was discovered that urbanization had made the flood 21 times more likely to occur, meaning that the increased risk was 2,000%. Hurricane Harvey ended up being the second costliest tropical storm ever, causing $125 billion in damages. To give some perspective on how expensive this is, with this same amount of money, you could have launched 1,923 Falcon 9 rockets or bought 6,578 of the world's most expensive car. This goes to show how much damage deforestation can do. However, since there is no stopping urbanization since the population is constantly growing, there is also no stopping deforestation, so it is better to adapt. My solution to this issue is culverts. Culverts, when used properly, reduce flooding on properties by moving large volumes of water through the system while also preventing the backup of floodwater onto adjacent properties, according to nrcsolutions.org. They also slow water down to reduce the chances of it eroding the roads and causing even more damage. Culverts are extremely flexible for any type of situation. They can have a diameter as large as 35.3 meters or as small as 12 inches, depending on what is needed. They can also have range in many other aspects, such as the shape, the roughness of the culvert barrel, the length, the slope, and others. This makes them the perfect choice for urban areas, especially since cities are then able to use culverts on any scale that they believe is necessary. According to a study done by California State Parks in December of 2001, culverts will increase discharge capacity, provide continuity for bed load and suspended load transport, eliminate of crossing or road embankment filling, prevent diversion of stream flow onto adjacent road surfaces, and reduce the risk of plugging from large woody debris or sediment plugs. In addition to this, they have the ability to protect roads from ephemeral streams during heavy rainstorms by preventing water from creating an impoundment without the costliness of building a bridge. This just goes to show how culverts, along with many other forms of flood protection, could completely protect a large city from flooding. An example of a culvert being used to protect a city is in Los Angeles, California. In 1938, there was an extremely damaging flood caused by a storm that overfilled the Los Angeles River, and it ended up destroying hundreds of homes and businesses. The LA area decided after that they were going to convert the river, the Los Angeles River, into a concrete basin with culverts leading water down from water leading down from the San Gabriel Mountain and into the Pacific Ocean. This was proven to be an amazing choice since in 2008, they had a flood with even more power and even more water than the previous one in 1938. But it did not cause nearly as much damage since the culverts were able to control the water better. So the question was, how can we prevent flooding in urban areas? Well, conclusively, the diversity and ability of culverts make them the ideal form of flood protection for urban areas, where there isn't the same amount of room or budget for larger scale flood protection as there is in rural areas. If used properly, culverts could save lives, homes, businesses, and the economy of cities from the harshness of floods. Thank you for listening.
Woohoo! Way to go, Hope. Let me stop the recording for a moment. Hannah, the floor is yours. Whenever you are prepared, I will begin recording on your first word. First word of your presentation.
Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, when you're not standing in front of the camera, I can definitely see it.
Okay.
You had your image and the TV perfectly centered in that last shot when you were standing there.
Okay. Does this look okay?
That looks professional and perfect.
Okay. Oh wait. Is it beginning?
Oh, yes,
Sorry.
you're good. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Hannah Jeffcoat, and today I am here to discuss flooding. Flooding all over the world has ravaged homes, cities, and parks, but especially devastates urban areas. These areas are so vulnerable to flooding because of their impermeable building structures, tight streets that act as coursing rivers during floods. Because more roads are closed during flooding and driving speeds are lowered due to slicker roads, urban areas experience congestion when there's heavy rainfall. Research from a group of civil engineering scholars states the reduction in performance of transport systems due to flooding is the most detrimental factor for the society, and it has been estimated around 100,000 pounds per hour for each main road affected. This is just over $124,000 US. Not only does flooding in urban areas cause lifestyle disruption, it also can cause cities substantial amounts in reconstruction. Worse than this are the deaths caused by flooded roadways. The scholars also said, meanwhile, studies have shown that roads are among the first cause of deaths in cities during flooding due to vehicles being driven through flooded roadways. The U.S. Department of Transportation states nearly 5,700 people are killed and more than 544,700 people are injured in crashes on wet pavement annually. Every year, over 3,400 people are killed. Roads are built to accommodate people. However, they fail to accommodate excessive floodwaters, making them unsafe. Oftentimes, this can lead to very devastating consequences. This is a picture of flooding in Cornwall, England. And this is a picture here in the US in Houston. As you can see, urban flooding is a global problem that needs to be addressed. Specifically, roadways are what make this flooding so dangerous. So let's take a closer look at these streets. These roads are built with standard asphalt. Rethinking the building material we use specifically for roadways would drastically lessen flood damage in urban areas. This is a standard piece of asphalt. As you can see, this asphalt is not designed for water drainage. Therefore, it is not designed to withstand flooding conditions. It is packed very densely with no air spaces in the material, meaning it's non-porous. This asphalt is standard in urban cities. It covers the soil, closing the surface, but it turns water into runoff, which worsens flooding. The Illinois Asphalt Pavement Association said, in relation to regular asphalt construction, without proper drainage, stormwater may cause premature deterioration of surface layers. In addition, moisture will penetrate into the subgrade layers, which could weaken the entire pavement structure, resulting in severe distress. This proves that asphalt is not made to tolerate water, and other drainage systems are required. From the pictures I showed you a moment ago, you can see roads act as coursing rivers during floods. Too much flooding can make these asphalt roads dangerous. When the water won't soak through, it gushes along the surface, carrying debris along with it and running into buildings, cars, homes, streets, and anything in its way. This picture shows us a grim view of what roads can look like after flooding. The floodwaters put tense pressure on the asphalt, making it unsafe after floods. They oftentimes crack or lead to bridge damage. The floods themselves are dangerous. but also are the non-porous asphalt roads even after the flooding is over. What I'm about to show you is the most affordable, efficient drainage system in the entire world. That's right, dirt. That is the environment's natural wattage drainage system. Unfortunately, it is unrealistic to revert back to dirt roads in these urban areas, but we can pick the second best solution. Porous asphalt. This block is also asphalt, but it's porous. As you can see, the water filters right through this pavement. So you may be thinking, how does this work? Well, it is very similar to regular asphalt. This is a picture of the installation of both regular asphalt and porous asphalt. Water seeps right into the porous asphalt and is directed back into the Earth's water table. Underneath the visible first layer is an even more porous subbase about 18 to 36 inches deep. Then, the water is able to soak back into the soil, replenishing underground aquifers. A permeable pavement called top mix permeable can absorb 1,000 liters of water per square meter in just a minute. That is 500 times more than the bottle I just poured on this asphalt. Using the Earth's natural wattage drainage ability by opening up our roads can lessen or even eliminate flooding in urban areas. Not only does porous asphalt just absorb water, it offers other benefits as well. In urban cities, the pavement typically reflects sunlight, making the streets in the summertime more hot. Porous pavement reflects less sunlight, making it a cooler choice. It also is proven to filter out suspended solid materials, making it a cooler or making it a more environmentally clean choice. It also replenishes the water table in the ground instead of filing into ditches, easing the demands on storm sewer systems. Because much less water sits on the surface of porous pavement, it ices over much less than regular asphalt. 75% less de-icing salt was needed for regular asphalt. The construction of future roadways or replacing especially flooded roadways with porous asphalt would most definitely decrease flood damage in urban areas. Porous pavement brings together the natural environment's drainage system along with the modern needs of infrastructure. They may efficiently coexist. It is proven to be a reliable drainage method, and its implementation would benefit urban cities, the environment, and keep urban populations protected from flooding. Thank you.
Holy cow. Great job, Hannah. And 7:54, I mean, you used every second you had. You built up to a conclusion. You provided evidence. Solid job. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Couch, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Stop the recording here. Recording. The floor is yours. And when you say the first word of your actual presentations, when I'll start the timer, okay?
Yes, sir. Hello and good morning. My name is Nick Cowart. I'm planning to discuss urban flooding with you. Does society care they are the cause of urban flooding? Have the people of our society caused this? What happened to these? Did people of our society build these? And where can the water go? Urban flooding is when an area is overcome with water due to excessive rainfall or snowmelt. As a society, we have to realize that we can't just cut down a forest full of trees or build on land without knowing the repercussions those actions cause in our environment. There are long-term problems associated when the natural environment is disturbed like this. These concerns need to be addressed every time an area is being developed for industrial purposes or housing developments. After trees are cut, erosion occurs, and that leads to flooding. Rainwater has nowhere to go. It can no longer be evaporated into the soil and plant surfaces, and water cannot soak into asphalt or concrete. Urban flooding is among the most dangerous natural disasters globally. Flooding is likely to intensify in the coming years due to climate change. By 2030, urban flooding is expected to cause more than $700 billion annually in damage and affect 147 million people. Urban flooding is a major problem for both developing countries and developed countries. As you can see from the map, the countries in bright red are at a high risk of flooding. Cities need to reduce growth of urban sprawl. Urban sprawl is defined as the expansion of poorly planned, low-density, auto-dependent developments outside of the city limits. Sprawl development destroys natural areas which are used to absorb floodwaters. In 2017, Hurricane Harvey was the major reason for the catastrophic flooding in Houston, Texas, which caused 40 inches of rain, $125 billion in damage, and 107 deaths. Tom Patterson of CNN reported that the flood in Houston, Texas would not have been as devastating if Houston had paid more attention to urban sprawl and had stronger rules and regulations and better land management. Due to the flooding problem, Houston is now having to react to this problem and is conducting a study to see if a tunnel could be a possible solution to reduce this impact of future storms. As you can see from the diagram, tunneling would allow transporting of large amounts of floodwater deep underground. Cities need to better protect the rural reserves. In 1970, Portland, Oregon took a proactive step to protect rural reserves and prevent urban sprawl that was happening in other cities. As you can see on the map, an urban growth boundary was established outside of which urban development could not occur. They would allow farming to continue right outside the city. Portland is the most cited city for its land use policies. As the population continues to grow, they revisit urban growth boundaries every 20 years to assess and adjust the boundaries as necessary. A way to protect communities from flooding is by providing natural downstream storage for rain and snowmelt. Milwaukee, Wisconsin is a metro area of 1.5 million people. As the area grows, more rain and snowmelt are expected to flow downstream, causing flooding. During extensive flooding in March of 2019, 281 million gallons of sewage water overflowed. The untreated waste and storm water poured into local rivers because the frozen ground could not absorb the rapidly melting snow. The Conservation Fund and the Milwaukee Sewage District launched a flood management program called Green Seams. Their goal is to protect open spaces in the metropolitan area. They purchased land where major suburban growth is expected to occur in order to protect the land. Smart growth policies need to be developed. Cities need to develop smart growth and long-term approaches into their development plans in order to withstand and recover quickly from urban flooding. Due to major damage caused by Tropical Storm Irene in 2011, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the Federal Emergency Management Agency assisted Vermont with incorporating smart growth and long-term approaches into their development plans in order to increase their flood resilience in the future. In conclusion, proactive land use planning will help better protect urban cities from flooding. First, by reducing the growth of urban sprawl, less forests and trees will be cut down. This will leave natural ecosystems available to absorb rainwater. Cities need to protect rural areas to conserve land and discourage development in areas that are needed for natural storage for rain and snowmelt. Cities need to have smart growth policies and long-term plans in order to withstand and recover quickly from urban flooding. My hope is that all cities can help reduce urban flooding by taking the approach of better land use planning. Thank you.
Woo! Good job, 614. 614, man. Let me, yeah. Pause.